Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this The Clown Decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And today it's a bit of a weird one, because it's one where I'm actually basically going to have to tell everyone, let's check our confirmation biases, because I went down a bit of a rabbit hole to find that actually there's evidence in some things going around Twitter and all that where we don't really have the evidence that we think we have when we see, well, said evidence. We'll get into it though. So to start all this off, asylum seekers loitering outside school is cultural issue, says police. Residents in Deanshanger in Northamptonshire have raised concerns about behaviour of migrants living in a hotel near a primary school. So police have told migrants to adhere to cultural expectations following reports they were loitering outside a primary school. Northamptonshire police said it would deliver some work around appropriate behaviours following complaints of men hanging around near the school. The force pledged to work with a hotel housing asylum seekers and step up patrols after the reports of suspicious activity in the village of Deanshanger. Now, instantly my complaints are, why aren't these people being arrested? Why are we giving them so much grace? You know, you as a man are outside a school loitering around, at the very least you will be questioned. And instead of being questioned about what they're doing there, there's kind of an assumption of, oh, they just don't understand the area and or the country they're in, and therefore we need to teach them how to live here, which, by the way, again, this was something that no British person voted for. But anyway, everyone knows those arguments. Migrants have been staying in a hotel outside the village for around 3 years and are among thousands living in temporary accommodation across the country. Temporary meaning 3 years, apparently. However, in recent months there have been increasing concern over young men loitering near Deanshanger Primary School, including claims of filming. Again, I can't think of a single country in the world where, at the very least, you wouldn't be questioned by authorities for doing something like this. It's a point that's been raised by Callum, who does his lovely little video vlogs, travelling vlogs. He makes the point that quite a lot of the time, refugees who come here will actually be people trying to escape criminal justice from their country of origin. But obviously, because they're criminals, they are happy to lie about why they have left that country and therefore they come here. And so effectively, you're actually quite likely to get criminals, crossing the border. I mean, by definition, they are criminals when they travel across the channel. There's just a caveat in the Human Rights Act where they are not considered to be breaking the law if they are a genuine asylum seeker, but then there's a massive backlog and you know the rest of that story. But my point being is that if, criminals are going to come over when they know they're not going to be vetted. I'm not saying treat every asylum seeker as a criminal, it's obviously not what I'm saying. However, I am saying that we should definitely probably be vetting them better. But following concerns, Sergeant Lorna Clark from the neighbourhood policing team issued an update to residents in which she confirmed the force had received several calls from people concerned about males hanging around primary school at drop-off and pick-up. She said that there had been several posts on social media and WhatsApp, and that she had personally spoken to those concerned and the school. Sergeant Clark said that after speaking to people directly and having her officers attend the hotel, they had not identified a risk to anyone, and there is no evidence to support that any offence had taken place. What I mean, again, all this is opening the door to is people saying the police do not take the concerns of people in these neighbourhoods seriously. There will be people adamant that they saw these men filming on their phones and things like that, and you know what, it may even be true, but the problem is that the police are so unbothered to actually investigate these alleged crimes properly that they would literally rather just say this than actually investigate properly. Am I saying that they didn't investigate properly? No, they very well may have. I have no idea. However, I know from evidence from elsewhere in other police forces, and probably even in this police force as well, that they don't bother solving crimes correctly. They don't turn up to reports of theft and things like that. And given that, in fact, she goes on to say this, while I fully appreciate the community's concerns, I ask that people don't take this matter into their own hands, but continue to speak to the police about any instance they witness or concerns they have. We are well linked with the hotel and can deliver some work there around appropriate behaviours and different cultural expectations. What that is saying to me is, right, we actually know that they're doing some wrongdoing, but we don't really want to arrest them, so we'll just teach them how to live here. We'll tell them that they shouldn't be filming children outside schools, when in reality they should be arrested and deported, assuming they've actually committed those crimes. But that's just simply not happening. Anyway, people are going to have less trust in the police when it actually turns out that there was a letter to parents last month. The school said it had been made aware of some men hanging around outside the school during drop-off and pick-up, and it was taking this matter seriously. The hotel where the asylum seekers are staying is separated from the school's playing field by a large field. The school said it had contacted police and urged parents to be extra vigilant, and as an added precaution, we will be keeping children away from the back of the field for the time being. Again, so schools are having to make arrangements for the kids to effectively stay away from the asylum hotel, is effectively what's being said here, and the police are effectively saying, oh, but there's nothing to worry about. Again, this is why trust in policing is going downhill in the UK. Speaking outside the school this week, some parents said that they had been so concerned they had temporarily pulled their children out of school. A 29-year-old mother of four, oh my god, she's my age, who asked not to be named, said she feared that the men may come into school's playing fields. She also claimed that every day since September, the men have been stood outside filming. She said that since the reports had come in, the police had been regularly outside the school. Again, this is why people just don't trust the police. They feel like they are being gaslighted and that there's not actually anything going on here. And this is obviously something that is happening around a number of schools outside of the UK, and it's putting an awful lot of parents, pupils, and, well, people who aren't even related to these stories, to be frank, on edge, because everyone understands that the basic thing that society should do is protect kids, children. They are innocent. They don't deserve any sort of, well, no one deserves any sort of crime happening against them, but they are also naive to some of the dangers that are out there in the world. Therefore, it's up to society as a whole to protect them. And so people got on edge with stories like this. Parents issued with warning after man lunges at schoolgirl just 3 miles from attempted abduction. So a warning has been issued to parents after a man lunged at a schoolgirl just 3 miles from an attempted abduction of an 11-year-old girl in Earlham, which is in Greater Manchester. The notice sent out to parents and carers of pupils at Flixton Girls' School in Urmston warned that a man had reportedly walked towards a year 7 student, so about 12 years old, as she was walking home from school before stopping and staring at her and lunging towards her. The latest incident on Tuesday afternoon was reported on Bowfell Road, just over 3 miles away from where an 11-year-old girl was grabbed by an unknown man and woman. And the thing with this is, I know exactly what your assumption is going to be here, and I'm just going to tell you that assumption is wrong. Because according to the description given by police, the male is white, approximately 5'9" tall, with short dark hair. He was clean shaven and wearing a blue jeans and a black hoodie. The woman was also described as white, wearing leggings and a black hoodie. The car is described as a black 4-door vehicle, blah 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 blah. You get the idea though. This is not your typical description for what you would expect to hear about asylum seekers in hotels, at least from all the clips, photos and videos we have seen of these people in hotels. Now, are they British or are they European migrants? I have no idea. The point I'm trying to make is, yeah, while we are all on edge about hotel migrants, actually there's just a whole breakdown of law and order in the UK, and actually it's not just specific people, just these migrants in hotels that we need to be worried about. There's a total breakdown of law and order all over the UK. And as I say, I'm afraid that in reality, when it comes to trying to blame every instance of abduction on asylum seekers and things like that, turned out it's not true. This was just 2 examples in Manchester alone of attempted abductions, and to get back to the other story. But the thing is, you go back to the other story, and the description we have there is actually much closer to an asylum seeker at a hotel. Dear parents or carers, we've been made aware of an incident that took place near the school yesterday afternoon whereby a year 7 student of ours was on her way home and was approached by a stranger. The man who was walking toward her on Bowfell Road stopped and stared at her before walking close to her, then blocked her way and lunged towards her, deliberately scaring her. The man has been described as average height, dark hair, dark eyes, dark skin, possibly Asian. We believe that there was also an incident in Earlham yesterday morning whereby a young girl was approached and grabbed by strangers. These ones were probably not Asian, but they don't say that. These incidents have been reported to police and victims supported. We would be very grateful if you could speak to your children about ensuring that they stay safe and are aware of their surroundings out in the community. Any concerning incidents or behaviours should be reported to the police straight away, and if your child is affected by anything like this, do let our welfare team know so that they can support them in school. I'd say mostly a perfectly fine letter, aside from the fact that they've implied that the other girl who was nearly abducted by a man and a woman, it's implied that they were Asian as well, because if you mention the first guy was Asian, then carry on saying, oh, another girl was approached by strangers and grabbed, you're going to assume, oh, they were Asian as well then, when they weren't. But that's largely nitpicking. I'm ashamed of the country, frankly, that we have to effectively not allow children to be naive anymore. You know, there's all these stories of the older generations being able to walk 10 miles away from their home to go fishing or something when they were 4 years old. And nowadays we're getting to the point where we're not even going to be allowing 16-year-olds out at night because there's too much of a risk that something could go horribly wrong. And I don't like that. Everyone wants to live in a generally safe country, and with stories like this, it's getting no better. But again, these stories are making everyone paranoid. Every time you see a letter from a school, you assume something's happened these days. Well, it actually appears that that's not quite the case. It's just schools that haven't even necessarily had issues yet are having to put out warnings when, say, recent migrants have moved to a nearby hotel. And yes, I am bringing up Altrincham again, because Altrincham College sent out a letter to parents as well. I've been made aware of several very serious incidents about attempted abductions of children from schools in our local area. Now, Urmston's something like a 20-minute, half-hour drive from Altrincham. However, they are both in the same borough of Manchester, so I'm assuming local area means Urmston in this case. These attempts happened whilst children were walking to and from school on their own. We'd be grateful if you could speak to your children and warn about how to stay safe and support us in reinforcing the following message. Go out in pairs or groups, don't engage in conversation with strangers. If approached by a stranger, they may be on foot or in a car. Do not talk to them and move away quickly. Never get into a car or van of somebody you don't know, even if they say they know you. If you ever feel afraid of an adult, make lots of noise and run away. I understand these are scary messages to pass on to your own child and ward, but it is important that we help our children to stay safe at all times. Please report anything suspicious to both police and the school. Now, I'm going to level with you. These are messages that have been given to children for quite some time. I know that my sister, for instance, had taken this advice on board, but again, that was about the age of 16 when she started going out. This is stuff that is having to be taught to 10-year-olds and above, simply for trying to get to and from school. If you're going out for a night out in your local town or going into the city, that's a little bit different and slightly more understandable. But issues that used to be concentrated in cities are moving out to the suburbs. Let me just show you how ridiculous this particular case is, because Altrincham College is nowhere near the migrant hotel. Here's a map from Cresta Court to Altrincham College. It's miles away. There's a whole golf course in the way. 50-minute walk. Well, 40 if you take the short route, but you do get the point. This is not even close to Cresta Court, and there are other schools that are much closer to Cresta Court who are probably more at risk, even assuming it was an asylum seeker who we read about in the description of the first case. But this is the other point I want to make. No point in that letter did they make out that this was a problem with the channel migrants or the migrants in hotels, whatever you want to call them. It's a general warning, because as heard in the description of the other incident, it was a white man and woman. It's not just asylum seekers we have to be worried about at this point, because there's been such a breakdown in law and order. They don't investigate properly. Barely anyone feels like they get arrested these days. And it's got so bad that schools are now effectively having to break the naivety and innocence of, well, children, frankly. They're not even teenagers yet, because we are failing as a society to protect them. It's just ridiculous. It's going to make people feel like they can't go outside safely. In fact, they don't even feel safe going to school, which I just find horrendous. But, however, in a piece from The Independent trying to say that because there's no evidence that the letter from the Altrincham school mentioned the migrants in any shape or form, it means it's got absolutely nothing to do with them whatsoever, which isn't quite true, but still. They had quotes from the police saying, "Please don't spread misinformation online," which I am obviously trying to avoid doing in this video. I'm trying to give you all the evidence I can give you to come to a conclusion. A Stand Up to Racism activist said refugees are welcome in Altrincham, there is no place for hatred. We handed out leaflets explaining that Britain First had been down and explaining that we would not allow a repeat of the racism pogroms against refugees in hotels that happened last summer, including in Manchester, where 2 refugee hotels were attacked. Yes, fine, whatever, well done you. Geraldine Coggins, Green Party councillor from Altrincham, and from what I'm aware, every time I have heard that there is a town meeting and she is present, she gets booed. This is the sort of intimidating behaviour and the disinformation we've seen. Alongside, it has no place in our town. Fortunately, we have been heartened by the inclusion, empathy and compassion that so many residents have shown. Again, this is just head in the sand stuff. I I lived near Altrincham for some years of my life, and I never heard a story of a school having to send letters to parents to effectively tell them to tell their 10-year-olds that it's probably not actually safe to walk to school and back on their own. I didn't have a particularly long walk to my bus stop to get to school, but I was never told particularly that I wouldn't be safe walking there and back. I mean, albeit I was a boy, I still am a boy. Well, I'm a man now. You get the point, but I'll put it this way. My sister being older than me as well, she would walk to the same bus stop by herself, and as far as I'm aware, there was never a need to tell her that it's going to be dangerous to do that. As I say, it was a 5-minute walk there and back. It was hardly a long one, and it was along a busy road. However, not everyone who went to that bus stop only went along busy roads. Not everyone who went to that bus stop had to walk 5 minutes, and again, those people weren't told that it's dangerous to do so. So clearly there are new problems that are arising now, and when it coincides with the big news that there are migrants who have moved into a hotel nearby, and it is quite clear that they are not the families that we had that went into Hale, the next town over, where there was less of an issue, people start putting two and two together and will share those concerns. And this is exactly what the Tory councillor in the area had to say. Nathan Evans, Tory councillor from Hale Barnes and Timpley South, said residents and local businesses agreed that the hotel should not be in the area. He said, obviously he means being used as an asylum hotel. He said that the hotel had previously been used for hen parties by people for town for business or to watch football, all customers who had spent money in the area. There had been quite an impact on the footfall in the area on restaurants, chip shops and coffee shops. Yeah, it's also economically impacts in the area, obviously, but don't worry, he does get into the actual issues at hand. Mr Evans said the Tory councillors had written to Home Secretary Yvette Cooper to raise concerns and have been lobbying ministers and shadow ministers to get attention on the issue. We feel that that is a route to tackle it, not standing outside with placards. That just makes people feel uncomfortable and probably doesn't achieve an awful lot. I'm not being funny. He's having a bit of a go at Reform and Britain First there, because Reform were at this hotel with a stand and placards, so he's probably having a bit of a go there. But the thing is that Reform don't have councillors in that area yet, so it makes a bit of sense that that's all they feel they can do. Councillor Evans said the school letter had made people worried. I did see the letter, and it eventually went far and wide. There were WhatsApp groups sending messages around from the local schools because people are just worried. That should not be necessary, but because up until 6 months ago we had a perfectly safe and normal environment for kids to walk to school without parents feeling worried in any way, and that has changed. Which, as I say, I used to live near the area, and that's pretty much how I feel. It looks like there has been a definitive change in the environment of Altrincham, and people do not like that. He explained that because people are already on alert over the hotel, anything that might be innocent sparks concern, because you know it's gone up and it's all over the place, Councillor Evans said. Yeah, so while it might just be a make sure your kids are safe, you know, there's been incidents up in Urmston, 20 minutes away, sure, but it's still in Trafford, so we just want to make sure your kids are safe. Turns into people assuming that in Altrincham there is an endemic of migrants in the hotel there causing issues in the area, when they very well might not be. We don't really have statistics on it. However, as I say, people have ended up paranoid in their own towns. Now, how much of this is to do with misinformation and fake news, I'm not entirely sure. However, what I will say is that when the general public do not want these hotels being used for migrants, you probably shouldn't be using them. When the general public want these people generally deported and we owe them absolutely nothing, you should probably deport them. Are they doing any of that? No. Who will do any of that? Oh, Reform. As much as I think Nathan Evans is a good councillor, and from my experience and what I've read in the past of him, he is a good councillor, unfortunately the parliamentary part of the Tory party doesn't appear to be wasn't doing particularly well for 14 years. There seems to be a slight improvement in the quality of MPs with this particular parliament. However, they're out of power now, so it's too little too late. Hence, I'm fully backing Reform. But anyway, people are on edge right now, and with news that, especially with all the grooming gang stuff that's been coming up recently, especially with Axel Ruda Kuvana recently being put in jail for life pretty much, with everything that is going to come across negatively to migrants in any way, shape or form, it's going to be worst case scenario in people's heads. The British are on edge right now. They have the feeling that the police are quite useless when it comes to solving any sort of serious crime. They have a feeling that if someone like Axel Ruda Kuvana can slip through the net of all of these institutions that are effectively supposed to say, yeah, he shouldn't really be in society, and obviously they miss him out. How do we know how many people have also slipped through the net and are planning a murder spree? We don't know. And this is the problem, because there is so much that we don't know, because we know that information was suppressed over the Axel Rudy Cubana case. It makes people think, well, what else are they covering up? Oh, grooming gangs, that was covered up. Well, how do they know that things aren't being covered up in their area as well? Every action that governments, local councils and all that could take to try and get complete distrust from the public, they have done. So it's no dir that people aren't trusting the gaslighting anymore. They don't trust the police anymore. And to make it all worse, when the police are outsourcing all of these issues to schools to say, right, schools, just let people know that they're not allowed to defend themselves, but they are allowed to take precautions to make sure that they're not an easy target. Yeah, how does that feel a safe country to live? I am not shocked that people have pulled kids out of schools over this, and I wouldn't be shocked to hear more news about it. But as I say, there's been actually no definitive proof in anything I've covered today that it actually has anything to do with the Channel migrants, aside from obviously the first instance of the story from Nottinghamshire. But when it comes to Manchester, there's actually been no evidence that the Channel migrants have caused issues with the stories I covered. One story could have actually been natives, but it's quite hard to tell because all we know is that they were white. And then the other one was an Asian man. Again, was he asylum seeker or not? Don't know, the police didn't investigate it properly. So while I am saying I do understand the paranoia from the British people and people online, obviously, what I am saying is let's just be careful with our assumptions. Because unfortunately, if you get things like this wrong, it's ammunition for the left to beat it over your head with. Oh, it's not all. Oh, you were wrong about this. If you're wrong about this, you must have been wrong about other things. And unfortunately, that's quite convincing in debates to the onlooker. So we've got to be really careful with our language and with the examples we use. That's all I'm saying. I'm obviously not saying that Channel migrants don't cause problems. They have quite clearly in this very video caused problems. I am saying that every incident that involves some sort of abduction or loitering outside of schools can't necessarily be blamed on asylum seekers in hotels. Anyway, as usual, I'm just trying to give you all the information I can with all the evidence I have, so I hope you enjoyed that video. In terms of shilling, tomorrow I'll be on Proper Horror Show's channel doing a lovely quiz that she hosts every now and then, so do catch me on Proper Horror Show's channel. Friday it's Laughing at the Guardian with some women, so do catch that as well. And then videos out as and when I can make them. If you want to support the channel, it's simple, just subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like. They are simple and free ways to get me up in the algorithm. If you think I deserve even more than that though, membership is from £2 a month. You get a complete access to my backlog of Laughing at the Guardian streams. They're all very funny from what I hear, so you may enjoy them too. You can also give super chats and super thanks wherever you think I deserve them, in comments or in live chats. Right, with that, that's everything I had for you for today, so once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.